Hey traders, this is Cousin Vinny coming to you on May the 24th with a few things that a number of you have asked me to cover today. Namely, you're interested in what I'm thinking in terms of what the market's doing right now. So let's just jump right into it. This is the ES daily. Note this period moving average here is the 150. We have RSI and stochastics, okay, which have bottomed and are starting to turn on the daily. Okay, let's just collapse this. Let's take a look at where we are presently. Let's throw some fibs on here. Okay, from this recent pivot high, beginning of May, down to this low. Okay, let's take a look. We are above the 150. Okay, since Monday, we had a nice big green candle. Tuesday we had a day of indecision. Okay, we had this doji where the bulls and the bears were fighting over position, but we did close above the 150. We had Wednesday where we closed higher than the midpoint of this candle. We did trade down to lows, but we didn't take out the lows of Monday. Okay, so that's a valid pivot right there. Alright, so let's keep an eye on these pivots right here. Now let's zoom back out. Let's look at the October low. Let's throw another set of fibs here, all the way up to this high right here. Okay, let's see, I'll put it here so it's easier to see. The first thing I notice is that we barely even made it back, and haven't actually made it back to the 382 from the October lows. Okay, so that's telling me, although we're 9% off of this high, okay, we really didn't suffer that much damage. And in fact, this is a very constructive area we're at right now. We held this high here, okay, from May, from that October high, and we have the May highs over here, okay, which coincides closely with that 382 level, okay, that I'm using as a target presently. If notice this point, this pivot right here, okay, that I pointed out on Sunday, alright, and this pivot high, okay, from last year. So we have this horizontal line of resistance, and we are back above the 150. We have bounced off of a nice area here, okay. So all in all, this is looking pretty constructive at present, okay. And now stochastics is oversold and turning, okay. So I wouldn't be so worried that the world is coming to an end, because, like I said, from this low on October 4th up to those recent highs in March, we've only come down 9% and barely have retraced to the 382, 1280 area, okay, before we bounced and started to head higher. Now what I'm watching is this line here, okay, coinciding with the July high, these lows here, and the 382 from these pivots. I want to see what happens at this 382. We're only about 20 handles away, and what I'm currently thinking about is maybe we come up here and we move back down, or we continue to move higher and we break through this level, which would be a signal of strength, and move back to the 50%. I'm not going to guess what's going to happen. I just go by the closes, alright? So it's all about the close. Let's take a look at the weekly now. Okay, let's clean this up a bit. Okay, here we are with weekly, and notice that our 150 is headed higher. Okay, so our moving average is moving higher, as you would expect. Here's our 382, okay, from the October lows. And notice that the stochastics and RSI are still headed down. However, on a weekly basis, we are inside of this candle. So this could be an inside day pattern unless we come back up above these highs, okay, that were put in 2011. Which is conceivable. We get back above that high here of 2011. This scenario will look completely different. Okay. Also note that from the lows of 2009 March rally, that we haven't come back down to this point except for in July and also in October. We didn't do it yet. I mean, it's possible that we could roll over on the daily eventually in the short term and come down and test this trend line. So that's in the back of my mind as well. But I'm watching this moving average moving higher and stochastics, both RSI and stochastics moving lower. Okay. For the most part, this is a very healthy looking chart. Let's take a look at the monthly. On the monthly, we have a little bit different look as far as the last 2 months. Okay, we are putting in a hammer, okay, off of these lows, and the moving average is somewhat flat. Okay, we had a nice run up through November, December, okay, and we reached the high, obviously. So right now, I'm leaning more to watching the daily and the weekly, okay, for signs. Note the RSI and the stochastics is headed higher, but we're in overbought territory on a monthly basis. Can we move higher into the summer? It's conceivable, but it tends to be a weaker part of the year, right? Okay. So that's the ES. Remember the daily and the targets that we overlaid on the chart. Okay, my chart's froze up, so I'm going to go over to StockTwits, where I'm a member as well, Cousin Vinny, okay? And looking at your targets. Alright, so if you don't feel like scanning through this video, you can just go to Chartly and pull up this particular chart. I post these every day at the end of the day on a closing basis, okay? So you can check those out. Let's take a look at a couple of trades now. There's a couple of things I wanted to cover, a few of you asked about today. First off, for those of you who aren't familiar with my charting techniques, I use Ichimoku. I use the tabbed method on free stock charts with a regular chart with Bollinger Bands enabled. Okay, I always use or look for a pattern, obviously. Alright, stochastics and volume. And also use a combination Keltner channel and Bollinger Band with MACD histogram for signals as well. So notice that on the spiders, we didn't make a new high. We didn't take out the highs in March. And stochastics got back up to oversold, and we got a sell signal. You should have been exiting some of your longs here and not holding through this downturn, okay? And this drop below the 150 right here. But the main thing I wanted to cover was the Ichimoku. Okay, for those of you who don't know Ichimoku, there's several components. The most obvious is the Kumo. Okay, the thickness of the Kumo directly relates to the amount of support or resistance. It's also based on the volatility in each of these candles. All right, on a 9-period and 26-period basis projected into the future. So this Kumo here, the span A, is based on these candles, not the closing price, but the high and the low divided by 2 is this line right here, projected forward 9 periods. Okay, it's important to recognize that this isn't a closing candle. This actually figures in the volatility of the candles and is depicted in the Kumo itself. So when you break down through the Kumo like we did here on the spiders, we retest and then we break down. This told you that there was significant pressure to the downside for us to break through this cloud so easily. Okay, Note the thickness over here is much narrower. It just means that there will be less resistance to a move higher and up through this level. The other component is the Chiku, which is this closing price right here, projected backwards 26 periods. Okay, and you have the Tenkan Sen and the Kijun Sen. These are your signal lines, 9 periods and 26 periods. Okay, span B is the bottom part of the cloud, and that's 52 periods projected into the future. All right. So those are the components of Ichimoku Kumo and what I use to trade. Note that the spiders, that we had some nice wicks where we had buyers step in and move prices back up the past 3 days. Okay, so note the price is touching Tenkan and we're starting to move higher. I would expect that there's a possibility tomorrow for stochastics to continue to move higher. Okay, and price to gravitate towards Kijun Sen. It's basically a mean reversion thought process right now. Okay, mean reversion back to this level here at 135.69. If you break this down, you can also use Kumo and these signal lines for buy signals. In this particular case, because we were down below the Kumo during that move down, when you pop up above and close above the Kumo, that's called a Kumo breakout. In this particular case, we came up, we failed, we came up, we failed but didn't, we made a higher low, and now we had a Kumo breakout on the 30-minute on the spider. So I would expect this trend line to break to the upside with stochastics positioned the way it is. Alright. You also want to watch for Chiku, which in this case is now breaking above price. Okay, you want to see Chiku above price. That's a bullish indicator as well. We had the TK cross the Kijun, the red and the white. Okay, and they gave us a buy signal. Okay, today, right around 11 o'clock. But what I was waiting for was this Kumo breakout. Okay, to look for a move higher into the Friday session. Okay, not expecting much tomorrow, and with Monday being an off day, I'm not trading on this, but it's something that I'm watching. Okay, Home Depot. This is one of Goat's trades. I noticed that you guys have traded this over the whole period from December through now. Okay, I was just looking at it as a scalp short swing today. You'll note that Kumo was very bullish here. Price is above Kumo. It's also managed to stay above Tenkan and Kijun Sen the entire time, and Chiku stayed above price as well. So this was a very bullish chart. So here we are in September, October of this year. Okay, on Home Depot, what I was watching was while the spiders were moving lower, SPY, and actually broke down through the Kumo, we actually held this in a relative strength fashion. Okay, and we're trading back up through the Kumo. So what I was waiting for was the first hour. I was waiting for a closing candle, which we already had from the previous day, a closing candle above the 60-minute. We had both Tenkan and Kijun moving above Kumo, and we had a closing candle above, 2 closing candles above, and that was a long for Home Depot. Okay, so this is a swing for me. VMware, I noted in the room that I was trading this. What I was looking at on the 1 minute during the day, early morning. We had early morning, a number of you were looking at this as a long, but I noted that this was a possibility that we would see a bear flag breakdown. Okay, which is what we got. Okay, so I typically like to wait later in the day because a lot of times you get better entries after the first half an hour first hour of the trade. In this case, we broke down out of this flag and we flagged again, but we didn't take out those lows. Right? So this is the first thing I was looking at. The other thing I was watching were these this move lower and then a close higher. Okay, back above Tikin-sen, which is the red line. Okay, so I kept tabbing, not tabbing, changing between my time periods, the 1 minute and the 5 minute, looking for a good entry. Okay, and we really didn't get any decent entry until we got this engulfing candle right here, right at 1 o'clock. Okay, and had you waited that long for these flags to play out, you could have pretty much captured the low of the day. Now I noticed that GOAT doesn't like to trade a stock like this when there is such high volume on a daily basis. Okay, so that's noted. But for the most part, that's what I was watching during the day today. Okay, so it was a 1 minute and the 5 minute, and note again with the Kumo. The reason, if you remember, during the 2 p.m. period, we had this nice move up, and as soon as we touched resistance on the 5 minute, the Kumo, we started to see the sideways action and resistance to a move higher as fast as we were moving here. Okay, we had a nice little move here, and I'm noting that we closed higher, and the actual closing price I think was 95.85, I believe. But we're getting very close to breaking through the Kumo on the 5 minutes. So I'd be interested to see how this plays out tomorrow. Okay, and I'd also be watching the longer time periods, because I start with the 1, the 5, and I like to progressively follow the Momo through the different charts. If it fails before it gets to the 60, it's telling me that it's a possibility for going lower. However, conversely, if we manage to continue to build buy signals from the 1 minute to the 5 minute to the 15 to the 30, whether it's TK crosses or Kumo breakouts or some other type of signal, I like to see the Momo on a long continue to go from the 1 progressively through the 60 and into the daily. Alright, so the daily, obviously, we have this nice candle where we had a low and buyers stepped in. Okay, it's not completely broken, and I'm also watching a 50% fib level here from this pivot high down to the pivot low today. Right, the 50% is right here at the 103.95 level. Okay, I like to see the price get back above Tikin, and Kijin's starting to move back lower, so that looks like it's going to coincide right here with the 50% level, which would be a magnet back in the opposite direction. Note where Chiku is. It's in the Kumo. I like to see this get back above price to be more of a bullish trade. Alright, again, this is Cousin Vinny coming to you from Day Trader Bootcamp, my new site of choice. Remember to use your stops, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.